Hey everybody, I'm Scott Tregeser and I'm going to talk to you about some peculiar pangolins. A little bit about myself first. I'm a member of the IUCN Species Specialist Commission Pangolin Specialist Group, also a co-founder and director of the Creative Conservation Alliance, a nonprofit in Bangladesh that works to conserve pangolin among a lot of other things. I'm also executive director and president of the Biodiversity Group, a US-based nonprofit that conserves and helps other organizations conserve those charismatic microfauna like pangolin that we consider life overlooked. And I'm also a member of the Explorers Club since 2018 and a member of the International League of Conservation Photographers, so you'll be seeing a lot of my photos during this presentation. Who are pangolins more importantly? They're the only scaled mammal in the world. Their scales are made up of keratin, kind of like your fingernails. Their size, you can think about them as being about as big as a small to medium-sized dog, depending on the species. They're Myrmecophagous, which is a big word for just eating ants and termites mostly, and they use their big, long, sticky tongue to do this. They're solitary, you don't see them in groups. They have pretty poor eyesight. Those cute little beady eyes can't see too far, but they have a great sense of smell that they can smell termites underground, and they can hear pretty well too. And there's 8 species of these. There's 4 in Asia and 4 in Africa. Here you can check out some of the ranges and pictures of the 8 species that we're talking about, the 4 in Asia, 4 in Africa. Look at the black-bellied pangolin, like the scales on that thing are incredible. And that's a smaller species, so it can be more arboreal than something like the giant pangolin, which is strictly terrestrial. And pangolins are so incredible. They can have a tongue that's longer than their entire body length, just so they can get as deep down as possible into that ant colony. Some of them have prehensile tails to help them climb trees like monkeys do. All of them roll into a defensive ball, just like the Pokemon rollout move, and a tiger can't even get through that. It's incredible. These scales are super hard. We actually know now that they're more related to cats and dogs and other carnivorans than they are to anything else, which is somewhat surprising. We used to think that they were related to anteaters in South America, obviously, but turns out that that's a case of convergent evolution. They came to the same ecological niche through different means, just like bats and birds both evolved wings, but totally differently. They're also bioturbators, which means that they move around a lot of dirt. They dig their home burrows, they dig for ants. That makes homes for other animals. They dig up nutrients and cycle them through the forest, and they also can bury seeds and other things. So without them, the forest wouldn't look anything similar like it does now. And they also have no teeth. They couldn't bite you even if they wanted to. But if they roll up really quick and you're holding them, the scales can actually cut you, so you got to be careful with that. And although they can hold their own against a tiger, they simply can't hold their own against us. They roll up into a ball thinking they're safe, and they get put into a bag and taken to market. They're actually the single most trafficked mammal in the world. It's not rhino, it's not elephant, it's pangolin. That's because their meat is sold as a luxury dish in Asia, and their scales are sold for traditional Chinese medicine, much like rhino horn, but they're both made out of fingernails. And despite the fact that they don't have any medicinal quality, over 1 million of these have still been taken out of the wild in the last decade. That means 1 will die during this presentation. That is not a good situation. They only have 1 to 2 babies every 2 years. So we have a very unsustainable level of offtake, and all 8 species are now threatened because of this. 3 of them are critically endangered, which means they're 1 step away from being extinct. But hey, don't get too depressed, because we can change this. This story hasn't been written. Spread the word. People need to know that this is the single most important time in human history to act. What we do now will affect every single future human that will ever exist. Potentially millions of generations of humans will feel the effects of losing the integrity of entire ecosystems when we lose pangolins. That doesn't have to happen though. If we just donate $100 billion a year, it's not that much. Consider that we've donated over $400 billion just last year in the US alone. If we channel that into the right ways, we can save everything. We just have to change it. And it starts with you. Please, if you can, donate your time, tithe, or talent. If you have $10 to donate, send it to a wildlife conservation organization, a small one. That's going to be the most effective thing that $10 could ever do. All right, last thing I'm going to talk to you about is Burmese pythons to segue into the next presentation. I work with them too. I kind of work with everything scaly. They're threatened in their native range of Asia, just like pangolins are. They're threatened by things like habitat destruction, human-wildlife conflicts, and overcollection for the pet and the leather trade. Now, while they're beautiful to look at in a tank, and their leather is also beautiful, if you're going to buy these products, please make sure they're sustainably sourced. The collection of which is decimating populations throughout Asia, and we actually don't know that much about those populations. We know much more about the populations in southern Florida than we do in their entire range of Southeast Asia. Now, to remedy this, we went out with the Creative Conservation Alliance in northeast Bangladesh to study them. We studied 10 pythons over the course of 6 years to better understand how they use their environment and how we can better coexist with what are essentially the last apex predators of the region. Now, we've killed off tigers and we've killed off leopards and we've killed off bears in that region, so these are the last predators that can take down medium to large sized mammals. We all know that predators tend to go for the sick and the weak, and we all know now, we're very familiar that sick and weak animals can transfer diseases to humans. So ironically, this snake that most people don't appreciate is the last bastion in that region against the next pandemic. You'd think that would then warrant funding to conserve them and to protect that fragile ecosystem. But it's actually very difficult to try to find funding to conserve something that's not cute and fluffy. So there's this interesting dichotomy that I wanted to point out to you, that there's a very distinct scarcity of funding in Southeast Asia to conserve these animals that need to be, while there's an exponentially more funding being spent in Florida to eradicate them from a place that they should be eradicated from. Now, I wish we could conserve them better in Asia and perhaps something would change, but I'm going to ask you again to change your mindset and start caring for the underdogs. Start caring for life overlooked. Now, if you found any of that interesting or you liked my photos, please follow me over at naturestills.com or on Instagram. If you want to know more about the work in Bangladesh, please go to conservationalliance.org. If you want to support Life Overlooked, which desperately needs it, go to biodiversitygroup.org. And if you want to check out a cool new initiative I'm on, then look at connectandconserve.org. Thanks for having me.